I do not ask for permission. I don't wait for people to give me permission. I don't wait for somebody to say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, you should do it. I do not wait for anyone. I do not wait for things to be handed to me. If I want something, it is already mine. And it's just a matter of me achieving it or me taking it. So I don't wait for diddly. I don't even wait in line. Okay, I'm too pretty to wait in line. Have you subscribed to the Baddie Brief yet? Because if you haven't, like, what are you doing? So if you are not familiars with the Baddie Brief, it is going to be a twice monthly end of the week pick me up that is going to be delivered to your email inbox on Friday mornings. And it's going to be super duper short. It's not going to be like your regular run of the mill newsletter that drags on for like 1,000 million words. It's going to be literally a 1-minute read. You're going to love it. And if you don't love it, you can literally just unsubscribe. Like, no one is forcing you to like read it. But it's not going to be like a regular newsletter because I'm not like other girls. Anyway, guys, why am I having like a manic moment? Anyway, so I'm going to put the link in the description. Feel free to subscribe. And today's law is to act like a winner before you even won. In the words of Nicki Minaj, when you already won, what the fuck is a race? But honestly, like, you already won. You already won. Okay, episode is over. Bye. Just joking. The world is addicted to the image of a broken woman. Literally, like, society loves to build a woman up and then destroy a girl when she shows pain. Think of Britney Spears when she had her mental health crisis in, 2007, where she shaved her head. Or think of Monica Lewinsky for being the scapegoat of a guy who couldn't keep it in his pants. Think of Whitney Houston, who was this angelic pop star, that's the image that they created for her, and then became a crackhead when her substance abuse and her abusive marriage came out. So here's the truth of the matter. And I say this all the time. I don't care if I sound like a wackadoodle or some kind of conspiracy theorist, but this is the truth that we all need to understand. The patriarchy loves a woman it can pity. Now, you might be asking why. I'm going to tell you why. Because a woman who begs for understanding is easy to control. Okay? A woman who narrates from the wound is predictable, containable, forgettable, all the ables. Women are praised for their sacrifices when a lot of the time men are praised for their accomplishments. Oh, she's such a great mom. She gave up her career to raise her family. And a lot of the time women are praised for their resilience after they've been beaten down. And I talk a lot about victim mindsets on this podcast because the thing about victim mindset is that victimhood is glorified. Oh my God, my cat just jumped. Victimhood is glorified, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. So you waste a bunch of time thinking about how terrible the world is and how much it's beaten you down. But like, practically, what does that do for you? Absolutely nothing. It makes you paralyzed because you're just stuck in this cycle of victimhood. Another thing, and this goes back to my very first girly law of power of don't be humble. We're taught that humility would protect us, that struggle would earn us a seat at this imaginary table, or that suffering is someday going to be rewarded. But I'm sorry, you don't get extra points for suffering. You don't get extra points for being in pain. You don't get extra points for being humble. If anything, you get penalized for all of those things because these are narratives. These are scripts, invisible scripts that we've internalized so that it keeps us small. Okay? Because power is not handed to the most deserving woman. It is claimed by the woman who acts like she already owns it. I've said this before, it's usually not the brightest and smartest who get places. It's the loudest person in the room. But there's a reason why this podcast is not called the loudest bitch in the building. It's called the baddest bitch in the building because there's ways to get that power without being loud and obnoxious. So if you have ever felt frustrated that no amount of hard work or goodness or pain has seemed to be enough, then this law is going to be your loophole. Because we are not here to win the suffering Olympics. We're not here to be gold medalists in the victim Olympics, okay? This law is how you stop waiting to be chosen and you start moving like you already won. And the difference between a winner and a victim is that winners act on circumstances, while victims wait for circumstances to be fair, which they never will be. We have to stop playing fair in an unfair world. We have to stop playing fair in a world where the rules are rigged against us. Because if the rules are rigged and the system is broken, that means the rules hold no value. It has no purpose. Okay. It's like when you played like Monopoly or board games with your cousin who would always cheat. There's no way you're going to win. There's no way the game's actually going to progress in the way that it's supposed to because the rules have been thrown out the window. So by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly how to move through life like the crown has already been placed on your head. So today's example is the only religious figure who I will follow, Barbie. No, but for real, it's Margot Robbie. So listen, after Wolf of Wall Street in, 2013, Margot Robbie was in her early 20s. And at that point, she was getting a lot of attention for the role that she played. So in the movie, she played the role of the wife of the protagonist. And listen, I didn't watch the movie, so I can't pretend that I did, but that's the role she played. That's when she started getting a lot of attention. Her name came out in Hollywood, and that was good. But at the same time, there was a risk associated with that. There was the risk of her getting typecast into that girlfriend, wife, sidekick role. So what does she do? A year later, she co-founded a production company. And she started producing projects that specifically focused on female leads who were complex and a lot of the time a little bit messy. And this was a pretty revolutionary because she started producing stories that Hollywood wasn't making for women at the time. And this is interesting because while I was putting together examples for this episode, I actually first wrote an example of Reese Witherspoon, who did the exact same thing. Because after Legally Blonde, she was also running the risk of getting typecast into these dumb blonde, like sort of ditzy roles, especially for rom-coms. And she's like, I'm going to take control. And she founded her own production company to make movies featuring strong female leads. So fast forwarding to 2023, when the most iconic movie came out, Barbie, which is actually, fun fact, this whole podcast, my whole concept of using the patriarchy's loopholes to our advantage is loosely based on the Barbie movie. But anyway, for that movie, Margot Robbie wasn't just the star, she was the producer. She literally handpicked the director of the movie, who was another woman. And with that director, her name was Greta, they reshaped this whole brand, this whole project from just this, something that could have been perceived as just a shallow movie about a doll to a very deep feminist cultural message that resonated with so many girly pops, including me. And Margot, she understood, we're on first name basis now, she controlled the narrative. She controlled the narrative by becoming a producer and controlling the kinds of stories that people associated with her name. So she didn't wait around for someone to call her up and be like, hey, I got a good role for you, or for Hollywood and the industry to decide what kind of roles she would play. Because if she had gone down that road, then she would have been boxed into the female sidekick roles. And she's like, girl, I'm a Barbie. I am a Barbie and I'm going to treat myself as such. And she did. She picked the story, she wrote the script, she produced the movie, she picked the character she wanted to play, and she just did it. So we all gotta take a few lessons from Barbie. It's Barbie, bitch. So, ladies, Barbies, the way I've structured the rest of this episode is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to go through 3 patriarchy loopholes that this law addresses, and we're going to go into detail about each one and also about action items that we can implement. So, loophole number 1. The system expects women to seek validation. Okay? Because that is how it keeps the girls on a leash. So if you walk in already validated, you jam the whole system. They're not expecting you to be validated. They're not expecting you to have validation come from yourself. And who is they? They with a capital T? The system. Your value is non-negotiable. Okay, listen to me when I'm telling this. Look me in the eye. Your value is non-negotiable. As a woman, you have intrinsic worth. Your body has the ability to create and carry life. You're literally a portal into the earth. Okay? Have you ever cried on a woman's bosom? That is a canon event for any woman. I remember this one time I was having like a really, really crappy week, and my friend came up to me. She saw me at the gym and she's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And just at that moment, I just broke down and cried. And she gave me a hug. And this is my friend who has like, she's pretty well endowed. And I put my head down on her bosom and I cried in her bosom. And that healed me. That healed a part of me I didn't even know needed to be healed. But yeah, all that to say, feminine power is healing power. It's creative power. It's nurturing power. You are worthy. You are worthy, babes. Okay? The rest of the work you got to do for yourself. I can't keep telling you this. Moving on. So there is a concept in psychology called emotional contagion. It's pretty self-explanatory. It basically means that we mirror the emotional tone of the people around us. Our brain picks up on their tone of voice, their body language, their facial expressions. It picks up all of these signals, and basically we mirror that emotional tone. So if you've ever noticed that you're with somebody who's in a bad mood and then you end up in a bad mood, or you're with somebody who's really happy and excited because maybe something really good just happened to them and you feel that excitement, it's contagious. That's our brain mirroring their emotional tone. Now, what's really important about this concept is that we subconsciously mirror the confidence or the insecurity of other people. So if you carry winner energy, if you project certainty, people are literally going to subconsciously mirror that and affirm it. And they'll basically treat you and react to you as the winner. They don't even have to understand why. They probably don't. It's just their brain is telling them, listen, this bitch is a winner, and they'll treat you as such. So we're basically psychologically playing a game of follow the leader. And this goes to a very, very fundamental element of human nature, which is that appearance matters more than reality. That is why I'm always telling the girlies to dress well, to use your pretty privilege, because people believe what they see more than what is actually true. And what you see eventually becomes true. Look at political leaders. As long as they give off this energy of confidence and self-assuredness and security that they're going to help the country or whatever, people are going to follow them. Now, I want to read a passage for you from a very important book that I used, not just for this episode, but for a lot of my episodes. And it is The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. So in case you didn't know, this podcast, which is based on the 48 Laws of Power, a lot of the 48 Laws of Power came from Machiavelli's The Prince, and underlying all of that is the Barbie movie. So I'm going to read to you a passage from The Prince. Men in general judge by their eyes rather than by their hands. Okay, sorry, I can't focus when I'm reading in an accent. So, men in general judge by their eyes rather than by their hands. It better be, don't touch me. Because everyone is in a position to watch, few are in a position to come in close touch with you. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. And then a little bit further down, our boy Machiavelli says, the common people are always impressed by appearances and results. Listen, this man was onto something. And let me give you a little bit of a background on Machiavelli's The Prince. It's funny, I've had this book for 6 years because I actually used it when I was doing my master's in political science. But basically, this book was written like 500 something years ago for Lorenzo di Medici, who was the ruler of Florence. So our boy Machiavelli literally wrote this for a specific ruler. And a lot of it is based on leaders, military strategists, influential people of the time and of history that Machiavelli observed or learned about. So listen, when I'm telling you things based on this book, based on this man's teachings, it's because a lot of the things I say are based in state and military strategy. And you might be thinking, girl, what? Like, why are you teaching me war strategies? But these are literally historical, tried and true methods of power, influence, lessons about people's downfalls, people's successes, and they don't want the girls to have access to the school of thought. I want to tell y'all, like, this is, I'm the only bitch out there doing this. I'm the only bitch out there giving the girls knowledge from history, military, political strategy. So I'm not trying to be the best. I'm trying to be the only. Anyway, what did this passage say? People believe what they see more than anything else. So the appearance, not only does it matter more than reality, but it becomes reality. That's the whole basis of fake it till you make it. Or in my grandma's words, because English is her second language, fuck it till you make it. And that's what separates the victims from the winners, because victims wait for somebody to define their story, whereas the winners define their narrative first and then move accordingly. Okay? Because you have control over your story, but you have to self-validate first, and no one is going to do that for you. You have to do the work. So what is that work? Number one is you got to know your worth. And I know there's so much stuff, that we clown now. Oh, know your worth, queen. Know your worth, king. But seriously, you have intrinsic worth as a human being, as a woman. That worth is there, babes. It's there. So you need to remind yourself of it. You need to connect with it. And no one is going to do this for you. You have to do it yourself. And you know how to understand your worth better than anybody else, because it's you. Another thing that you can start doing is when you speak about your work, about your accomplishments, use certainty language, because we also mirror our own behaviors. So if let's say you're starting a business and it's still early on, don't say, oh, I hope to, create a business that will do X, Y, Z. No, you're going to say, this is what I'm building. This is what I'm working towards. Okay, so remove this uncertainty, this, oh, I hope, or blah, 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 blah. Okay? We mirror our own behaviors, just like the emotional contagion concept where we mirror other people's certainty and confidence and insecurities. We also mirror our own. It's called auto-suggestion, and I talk about this in law. God, I don't remember what law this is, but the law about using the art of suggestion. Because I don't hope for anything. If I'm counting on myself, girl, I've already won. Let me tell y'all something. When I decided to quit my job, and mind you, I was still working my job, I had come to the decision and I wanted to discuss it with my parents. And I went home one day and I told them, listen, decided to quit my job and I'm going to pursue my business and my podcast full time. They were very supportive. I'm very privileged to have parents who are this supportive. And they basically asked me, not in an oppositional way, but just in a way to humor me and pick my brain. They asked me, what makes me so sure that I'm going to quit my job and find success in the business that I'm trying to build? And I literally told them, I'm like, I'm counting on myself. And if there's one thing I can always be sure of, is that I am never going to let myself down. Because if I want something, I am restless until I get it. So if I'm counting on myself, I'm good. That's it. That's all the proof I need. And a week later, I quit my job and now we're here. So that was loophole number 1. The system expects women to seek validation. So what is loophole number 2, you ask? Well, I will tell you. Loophole 2 is that the system rewards relatability, not power. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the time, women are praised when they're relatable, and especially when they're self-deprecating. Especially this language of, oh, I'm one of the girls. A lot of the time, that depends on self-deprecation. When women are non-threatening because they're soft and self-deprecating and they're one of the girls, that's what makes women relatable. But the second a woman positions herself above the crowd, she's called arrogant. Oh, she's too much. She's so full of herself. Oh, you know what's so sexy? It's a woman who's humble and she's so arrogant. She's a narcissist. Blah, 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 blah. Blah. What you need to start doing is you need to refuse. You need to refuse to perform smallness for acceptance. And this is going to piss people off because most of the people around you are people who are actually small. They're not even performing smallness. They are insecure. They're in their comfort zone. They're threatened by women who refuse to act small. So you need to get away from these victim-minded people because they're insecure. They're going to be threatened by your success, and they're going to be the ones who, when you level up, when you start a business, when you start losing weight, or whatever it is that you need to do to feel like the best version of yourself, they're going to be the ones who come trying to drag you down. So reject the pressure to conform. And this might be one of the hardest things you do, and it might be really uncomfortable and you might lose friends, but being the same as everybody else, I promise you, is going to be your downfall. You're going to be forgettable. You're going to be a nobody. You're going to be dragged down by the lowest common denominator, which is the smallest, most victim-minded, most insecure person in your circle. So drop the urge to be relatable. So if you're around people who you can only relate to by sharing your flaws or by being miserable with them, by being victims with them, girl, you need to run. You need to run. So I challenge you, next time you're with somebody and they say something self-deprecating, oh, I'm so bad at this. Don't join in and be like, oh my God, me too. I'm so bad at this too. You know what I do? When somebody around me says something self-deprecating, I tell my friends to shut up. They're like, oh my God, I suck at this. Oh my God, I look so bad. Oh my God, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm like, literally, shut up. Shut up. Either shut it down or get away from it. Because think of it this way. You are building an empire, not a fan club. So now let me share another passage from the Prince with the girlies. And this is a very famous passage. You might have heard of it because this is basically where he talks about it being better to be feared than to be loved. So our boy Machiavelli says, it is far better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. One can make this generalization about men. They are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. They shun danger and are greedy for profit. While you treat them well, they are yours. So long, as I said above, as danger is remote, but when you are in danger, they turn away. Any prince or princess who has come to depend entirely on promises and has taken no other precautions ensures his own ruin. Men worry less about doing an injury to one who makes himself loved than to one who makes himself feared. For love is secured by a bond of gratitude which men, wretched creatures that they are, break when it is to their advantage to do so, but fear is strengthened by a dread of punishment which is always effective. So, what does this mean for the girls? Love is unstable because people are selfish and it is based on fickle, selfish things like gratitude and convenience when it serves that person who loves you, or in this case, the person who is your friend or is around you. So when you're relatable to their victimhood and their smallness, then of course they love you. On the other hand is fear. Fear, Machiavelli says, is in your control because it is based on a perception of yourself that you create. And for us, that perception is being a winner. And that will make you a little bit intimidating, but that perception is based on respect. And it goes back to that emotional contagion where people are going to reflect back to you the confidence that you portray. And this reminds me of this episode of The Office where Michael Scott was like, do I want to be feared or do I want to be loved? Well, I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
All right, moving on to loophole number 3. This loophole is that humility is used to keep women small. So remember law 1? Don't be humble? Yeah, she's back. This is because the system, it rewards women for staying humble, quiet, apologetic. Again, so it's that they don't threaten the hierarchy. And the thing about humility is that it's used to neutralize ambition. Humility in women is marketed as a virtue for some reason, but it's also weaponized as a control tactic. And let me ask you this, what do you think is the opposite of humility? If you think it's arrogance, that is a sign that you've been tricked. Because the opposite of humility is actually confidence. We're just conditioned to think that the opposite is arrogance, because when we have this dichotomy of a good trait, humility, versus a bad trait, arrogance, then who wants to be the bad trait? But that is a false dichotomy. So if you're not humble, you're confident. That is a virtue. Confidence is a virtue, not humility, not downplaying your accomplishments, not making yourself seem small so that other people can take up more space, other likely less deserving people. Because remember what I said, it's not the smartest and brightest, it's usually the loudest who get far in life. And what do you really get out of being humble? A job? A promotion? More clients? More sales? More clout? No. And here's another psychological concept. It's called the confidence heuristic. It's called the confidence heuristic, which basically states that people are more persuasive when they express their opinions with confidence. So we trust people who seem confident. I saw this TikTok that said, if you're looking for a job, just go into an office and start pretending that you work there. And if they call the police, go to the police station and pretend you work there too. But it's funny because if you come off as confident, you act like you belong there, then most people are going to take your lead. I'm sure if you walked into like a big office building and pretended to work there, no one will call the police on you until like maybe a little bit later in the day. So here's a couple action items for the girls. Number 1, there are 2 words to remove from your vocabulary: just and sorry. So drop, oh, I'm just following up. No. Now you sound like you're not confident. Hi, I'm following up on my previous email. And the word sorry, I've talked about this in a previous episode. Replace sorry with thanks. So if somebody moves out of the way so you can pass, or someone holds the door open for you, or does you a favor, instead of saying sorry, say thank you. And I'm not saying to replace sorry with thank you if you do something wrong, like you go and punch somebody in the face, you're like, thank you. But you know what I mean. Take up space. Also drop the I'm just happy to be here language that had the word just in it too. Drop that. I deserve to be here. I worked hard to be here. So you're not just happy to be here, babes. So own your accomplishments. And it might be hard, it might be uncomfortable because we're brainwashed to think that if you're not humble, you're arrogant. But that's just a narrative that we've been fooled into believing because it's easier to control a woman when she's small and uncertain with herself. This also goes for when you're discussing any weaknesses that you might have or any struggles that you experienced. Link them to growth. You can tell your life story as a tragedy, or you can tell it as a plot twist. You're in control over your story. Honestly, you guys, if you ask me, I don't lose. I either win or it's a lesson. Okay, it is reversal time. So, what I gotta say about our reversals is read the room, babes. If you are entering a space where, let's say, the existing leadership or culture is very fragile or very territorial, or it's built on a very linear or rigid sense of hierarchy, then moving like a winner, especially right off the bat, it could trigger some backlash. For example, if you're hired in a new workplace and it's a very hierarchical structure, maybe hold off on that winner energy until you build relationships, make alliances, and work up that winner energy more gradually. Also, sometimes it helps to hold off for a little while because you need to first play on the image of being underestimated, especially if you're playing the long game and you need to be a little bit more strategic. It might work better in your favor to start off by being a little bit underestimated or pretending to be humble, to be relatable. And then when you form those relationships and those alliances and you establish some credibility in the space and you ascend the ranks, then that winner energy can come out a little bit more. A good example of this is our girl Princess Diana, who, after He Who Must Not Be Named publicly admitted to cheating on her, she spent a year being quite humble, quite silent, doing humanitarian work, and not really speaking out against the scandal that had happened. And what that did was it helped her build a lot of sympathy with the public. And then after a year and a half, she dropped a bombshell in a BBC interview where she spoke about how there were 3 people in her marriage. And even during that interview, she still had the air of somebody a little bit shy, a little bit quiet, but those all really helped her case of getting sympathy, of bringing the truth to light and telling the public what it needed to hear. Another reversal, and this is more of like a caution, is that moving like a winner doesn't mean not having any accountability. So make sure that you always have a growth mindset, that you're always willing to learn from people and be self-aware enough to learn from your mistakes and to be open when people who are maybe more experienced than you, ahead of you, smarter than you, have a thing or two to share. Now, all that to say, when you move like you already belong, like you're already winning, you create this gravitational pull that people, opportunities, systems, they have no choice but to orbit around. So create that gravitational pull for yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Okay? And don't forget this: winners act on circumstances. Victims wait for circumstances to be fair, which they never will be. And with that, I'm going to close today's episode and give you all a reminder to subscribe to the Baddie Brief. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. And until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye.